Okay, let's unpack this. So imagine you're an affiliate marketer. Yeah. You're constantly, fighting for clicks, for attention in these really crowded markets, North America, Europe, where the CPCs are just sky high. And honestly, audiences have seen pretty much every offer imaginable. Now get this. A source lands on our desk claiming there's this whole region quietly making millionaires right now. A place where competition's low, audiences are fresh, the opportunity is apparently booming. That's the really provocative claim at the heart of the source material we're diving into today.
Yeah, and it's not just speculation either. They're basing this on, 18 months of actual testing?
Yeah.
With real money involved.
Exactly. Real money tested across Mexico, Colombia, and Peru. And it's suggesting Latin America isn't just like a maybe later kind of market. It's suggesting it's prime territory for affiliate arbitrage right now for 2025. So our mission here in this deep dive is really to put through the hype. We want to understand why this source is so bullish on LATAM. We'll unpack the specific data they present, look at the real-world case studies, and basically pull out the essential insights for you if you're considering this opportunity.
What's really fascinating, I think, is that core idea they present, that LATAM's shifting gears, moving from maybe later to prime time now for affiliate marketing. It's not just, general growth. It seems to be this unique mix of digital readiness, consumer habits, and crucially, that lower competition creating a specific window.
Yeah, and the source gives some pretty compelling reasons why that window is open. First up, they talk about fresh audiences. The point seems simple enough compared to, say, the U.S. These consumers just haven't been bombarded with the same old direct response ads over and over. Less ad fatigue, basically.
Exactly. And that ties straight into the next point they make, low competition. The source suggests, most of the big affiliate players, they're still concentrating their firepower elsewhere. Leaves a lot of room in LATAM for early movers.
And a massive factor, they really hammer this home, is it being a mobile-first market. Over 70% of internet users connecting mainly on their phones.
Right.
That's not just a stat, is it? It fundamentally changes how you have to approach campaigns.
Totally. And the source also digs into some cultural stuff. They describe LATAM users as leaning towards being impulsive buyers, especially for certain offers. Combine that with things like maybe lower trust in local healthcare, which pushes people towards supplements online.
Oh, okay.
Or just the huge engagement in mobile stuff like gambling. You see how that cultural context starts to matter?
They also mention lenient ad regulations in some spots, particularly for those gray verticals, certain health offers, gambling, compared to stricter regions.
Yeah, which can mean a bit more flexibility, though you still got to navigate carefully, obviously.
It's obvious.
And finally, the big engine driving it all, booming e-commerce. The source is projecting by 2025? Over 300 million digital buyers.
Yeah, and $160 billion in e-commerce sales. That shows a rapidly growing digital economy. People are getting comfortable buying online.
Definitely.
So if we pull back, look at the big picture the source paints. We're talking a population over 660 million, more than 70% online, mostly mobile, e-commerce growing nearly 20% a year, average monthly income, maybe around $700. So tier 2, but with a fast-growing middle class.
And the main languages being Spanish and Portuguese.
Right.
So if you put all that together, what the source is really arguing, I think, is that this specific combination, huge connected population, but underdressed by affiliates, plus growing digital payments and that cultural openness, it creates an arbitrage opportunity. Lower costs, potentially higher conversions compared to the old markets.
Getting in while the iron's hot, essentially.
That's the idea, yeah.
Okay, that really sets the scene, explains their core argument. So based on their 18 months of testing, what specific types of offers, what verticals did they find were actually working best there?
Well, the source is pretty clear on the top performers. Leading the charge is Nutra, health and supplement products.
Nutra. Okay, why Nutra specifically? What makes it such a winner in LATAM, according to their findings?
They put it down to a few things. Common health issues in the region, for one. Also that noted lower trust in local healthcare systems.
Right. Pushes people online.
Exactly. Pushes them to look for alternatives online. And then there's that impulsive buying tendency we mentioned. The traffic sources they found best for Nutra, Facebook, MGID, that's a big native ad network, push notifications, and Google Ads.
And which countries were key?
Mexico, Peru, and Colombia were the main ones they highlighted for Nutra's success.
Got it. Okay, what was number 2?
Gambling, or iGaming, that's another huge one. And that's really fueled by, its legal or kind of loosely regulated status in many LATAM countries. Plus, again, that massive mobile usage.
Makes sense. What traffic sources work there?
For gambling, they found TikTok was big, Facebook, YouTube, and also native ad networks. The key GEOs, geographical locations, were Mexico, Brazil, and Peru for gambling.
Brazil, too. Interesting. And given the e-commerce boom you mentioned, I'm guessing that's strong, too.
Oh, absolutely. E-commerce is thriving pretty much directly because of that booming market and people using digital payments more. Facebook, Instagram, Google, native ads, those were effective. Their testing for e-com focused mainly on Mexico and Colombia.
Okay. What about things like finance or adult content?
Yeah, finance is interesting. The source points to a large, underbanked population. People without traditional bank accounts or easy credit access. So there's high demand for alternative loans, credit products, financial services online. Facebook, Google push ads worked well there, mostly in Mexico and Colombia again. And yes, the adult dating vertical also gets a mention as successful. They describe it as leveraging an audience that's generally pretty open-minded and highly engaged online. For that, they used push, native, and various social traffic sources, also focused on Mexico and Colombia in their tests.
What really stands out to me looking at this part of the source is how they connect the dots. They don't just list verticals. They explain why these specific offers click in LATAM. Whether it's health needs, the rules, cultural things, it's not just what works, but the reason behind it.
Precisely. And understanding those reasons is critical because, as the source shows next, you can't just treat LATAM as one big blob. You've got to look country by country. And they give details on the three they tested most: Mexico, Colombia, and Peru.
Okay, let's start with Mexico then. What specific insights did they dig up there?
So Mexico, huge population, over 131 million. Very urban, like 88% of major cities. The source found top verticals were Nutra. They even mentioned specific niches like weight loss, diabetes, hypertension, plus gambling, and e-commerce. Best traffic sources: Facebook, Instagram, Google Ads, TikTok, and push.
Did they give any hard numbers on costs, like click costs?
Yes, and this is where it gets really interesting. The source reported potentially really low CPCs, cost per click on Facebook, sometimes like 0.11, 0.1 or 2 cents.
Wow, 1 or 2 cents.
Yeah. Google Ads were more like 0.091. Still, compare that to Tier 1 markets. It's a massive difference in how much it costs just to get started.
Definitely.
And for language, they stressed using local Mexican Spanish, not just generic Spanish, but local slang, idioms, and using .mx domains for trust. The huge takeaway from Mexico: overwhelmingly mobile. So everything ads, landers, offers must be mobile optimized, no question.
Those CPCs alone are eye-opening. Okay, how about Colombia? What did they find there?
Colombia, population over 52 million. Their testing showed strong results for Nutra, specifically detox, immunity, diabetes offers, e-commerce, and finance. Top traffic sources were Facebook, push, native, and Google Ads. They described the audience as young, digitally active, pretty open to new offers.
And costs.
Still low, they noted, but maybe starting to creep up a bit. Something to watch.
Right. And the third one, Peru.
Peru. Population around 34 million plus. Top verticals there were Nutra, again focusing on things like joint pain, prostate health, vision correction, plus gambling and e-commerce. Effective traffic sources: MGID, Facebook, push, Google Ads. And an interesting observation from the source about Peru: the audience seemed to have less banner blindness. They responded really well to bold, direct creatives.
Ah, that's a fascinating detail. Did they connect that to anything specific in Peru?
Yeah, they explicitly linked the success of health offers, especially Nutra, to maybe lower access to quality local healthcare, which, drives demand for online solutions. It really shows that successful localization isn't just about language, right? It's understanding the local context, the local needs.
Yeah, absolutely. These country details really drive home their point. LATAM's a region, but you need a tailored strategy for each market inside it.
Exactly.
And the source doesn't just stop at theory, they back it up with case studies. Real-world examples from their testing. This is where it gets really interesting, concrete proof of profit.
Agreed. This is the proof in the pudding, so to speak. The first one they detail is a Nutra campaign in Mexico.
Right. They mention using offers like vein control, Relafix treatments for varicose veins, hemorrhoids targeting mainly via Facebook traffic.
And the result they cite is pretty impressive: $35,775 net profit. That was over 6 months, from a budget of about $72,190. So an ROI of nearly 50%, 49.56%.
Nice. And what were the key learnings they pulled from that one?
Well, they found focusing on newer Nutra offers, ones with less competition already, worked really well. Also, interestingly, sometimes simpler static creatives, maybe with a voiceover, outperformed complex videos.
Oh.
And they said standard Facebook accounts worked fine. You didn't necessarily need those high-limit agency accounts to turn a profit.
Okay, good to know. What was the second case study?
That was a Detox Nutra offer run in Colombia.
Yeah, the Omni Detox one. A parasite cleanse product, also mainly on Facebook traffic.
This one's striking because of how fast it seemed to work. The source reports $5,320 net profit from a budget of just $4,850 in only 11 days.
11 days, wow.
Yeah, an ROI of 110%. They even give specifics. 2,296 leads generated with a $14.20 payout per lead.
So what was the big takeaway from that rapid success? What did they learn?
The source noted that, surprisingly, broad targeting worked well in Colombia for this offer. Because it was relatively unsaturated, they didn't need hyper-specific targeting. They also found that using images featuring people who looked like medical authorities really boosted trust and conversions for this kind of health offer.
Makes sense.
So these case studies, according to the source, are basically direct evidence. The potential they're talking about isn't just theory, it's actually happening.
Okay, so based on all this testing, the case studies, the successes, what are the absolute practical keys to success the source lays out? For affiliates wanting to get into LATAM or scale up, like what works for traffic? What about the ads themselves? And how crucial is that localization piece we keep hitting on?
Yeah, they provide a pretty good breakdown of the winning traffic sources from their experience. Facebook and Instagram, they call them the king for lots of verticals: Nutra, e-com, finance, low cost, wide reach. But, the ban risk is always there.
Always the catch with Facebook.
Right. Then platforms like MGID and other native networks get highlighted, especially for Nutra and e-com. They note less competition there, maybe easier content moderation compared to the social giants.
Okay.
Push notifications. Described as cheap, scalable, and feel quite personal. Work well across different verticals, Google Ads, obviously, high-intent traffic, but more expensive, stricter compliance. Good for e-com, finance, compliant health stuff. And they also mentioned the explosive growth of TikTok and Kwai, especially for gambling, younger audiences. And even YouTube and X, Twitter, for building authority or running news-style campaigns.
That's a pretty diverse mix.
Yeah.
It sounds like the advice is definitely don't rely on just one platform.
For sure.
And you mentioned localization being critical. The source really hammers this, right? How deep does that need to go?
Oh, it's fundamental. They stress it again and again. You have to use local Spanish, not generic textbook Spanish. Mexican Spanish for Mexico, Colombian for Colombia, Peruvian for Peru, or Brazilian Portuguese for Brazil.
Right.
They say avoiding generic translations and actually using local slang, local idioms, it makes a huge difference to conversion rates, builds trust, builds rapport, and using local domains .mx, .ho, .pp also presented as a simple but really effective trust signal.
What about the visuals, the look and feel of the ads, the landing pages?
Yeah, strong recommendations there, too. Use visuals with real people from the region, credible-looking medical figures for health offers, relatable situations. They explicitly say don't use generic stock photos that just scream, I'm an ad from somewhere else. It needs to feel authentic.
And given that mobile-first point, optimization is just non-negotiable.
Absolutely, mission critical. Everything. Add creative sizes, landing page layout, load speed. Everything must be designed and tested primarily for mobile. Big, readable text, clear calls to action, fast load times, essential for capturing those users.
And compliance. Still got to be careful.
Yeah. I mean, while regs might be looser in some gray areas compared to, say, Europe, you still need to watch the platform rules. They warn about using celebrity images or fake certificates, especially on places like MGID and Facebook, which have their own policies.
Gotcha.
And finally, cultural sensitivity. Understanding local holidays, attitudes, taboos, and really the need to test and adapt your message country by country.
This level of detail, on tailoring the approach, it really explains that initial idea of fresh audiences and low competition.
Yeah.
It's an opportunity, but for those willing to do the work to actually connect locally, not just blast generic stuff everywhere.
Exactly. And looking ahead, the source gives a quick peek at market trends that kind of reinforce the opportunity. They project continued strong affiliate growth. Mexico at 10.4% annually, Colombia 9.5%. The e-commerce surge, 19.4% growth, health and wellness boom at 7.8%. These keep driving those key verticals.
Right.
They also note ongoing gambling expansion, the rising impact of influencers, and more people using mobile payments as key trends to keep an eye on.
So, boiling all this research, testing, analysis down, what are the concrete, actionable steps the source recommends? If you're listening and thinking, okay, I want to pursue this LATAM thing.
Okay, so based on their findings, they suggest starting with those high-potential verticals like Nutra or gambling. potentially faster profits there. Crucially, test multiple traffic sources.
Oh.
Don't just rely on Facebook. Diversify.
Right.
Localize everything thoroughly. Copy, landers, cultural references, even the domains. Always monitor compliance based on the platform rules you're using. Optimize absolutely everything for mobile. Cannot stress that enough. It's non-negotiable.
Right.
And finally, maybe their strongest advice. Scale what works fast. Because while competition is relatively low now,
Yeah.
the source does note that affiliates are starting to catch on. That window is likely to get more competitive.
So move quickly if something hits.
That seems to be the message.
Yeah.
And these points, they're not just theories. The source is pretty clear. These are the conclusions from their 18 months of real money testing and the profitable campaigns they ran.
Okay. So to kind of bring this deep dive to a close, our source material makes a really compelling case, doesn't it? They argue, with data, with real examples, that Latin America, especially Mexico, Colombia, Peru, represents a significant current opportunity for affiliates, but specifically for those prepared to put in the effort to adapt and really localize their approach.
Yeah, the combination seems powerful.
Yeah.
Fresh audiences, lower competition compared to Tier 1, that booming mobile-first digital economy, and the cultural fit for offers like Nutra and gambling. It creates this arbitrage opportunity that their testing shows can be very profitable. If you apply the right strategies, especially that intense focus on country-specific localization.
And the source emphasizes, competition is starting to creep up as more people get wise to it. So based on everything we've unpacked from this pretty detailed analysis, is the biggest barrier to really grabbing this LATAM opportunity simply moving fast enough, scaling before costs rise? Or is there maybe something else entirely that this analysis, as thorough as it seems, might not fully account for, something for you to think about?